Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the big club. We're going to talk about one of the most infamous symbols ever, infamous figures, especially in the occult. If you study the occult, of course, you know the Baphomet. And we're going to talk about the agenda of the Baphomet. Typically, I don't think this was used for what's happening now, but from what I've seen, the Baphomet is now on the forefront, of erasing gender, if that's right for me to say. But all of this gender confusion, it's not a coincidence. This sudden obsession with pronouns, identity politics, basically blurring the lines between male and female. It's not evolution. What you're witnessing is a ritual. It's a spiritual takeover. And at the center of it all sits an ancient figure with the body of a human, the head of a goat, wings, breasts, and a torch on its crown, which can symbolize enlightenment. The name is Baphomet, the god of the New World Order. We're already in the New World Order, if you haven't noticed. People talk about the New World Order. It's already here. It's already happening. All of this confusion that's happening, this is the New World Order taking place. And Baphomet wasn't born from myth. It was constructed by a French occultist, Eliphas Levi, and he drew the most famous depiction of it in that was 1856. In that image, Baphomet sits with one arm up, one down, with the phrase "Salve et Coguala" basically inscribed on each arm. And what that means is to dissolve and to merge, male and female, human and beast, light and dark. Constantly when you see, what people actually don't understand is that there are hybrids on this earth, okay? The movies you see about half horses, half man, half pig, half human, half fish, half man, mermaids. These hybrids exist. Funny enough, but do your own research. If you don't believe me, go deeper. But let's talk about the Baphomet. He has breasts, he has a penis, hoofs like a goat, wings, a torch, as I said before, and a pentagram carved into its skull. So this isn't some edgy satanic symbol. It is a coded archetype of alchemical transformation, if I can say that, the merging of opposites. But more importantly, I think it is the blueprint for global psychological warfare. Baphomet's androgyny isn't random. It represents a dismantling of natural order. As I told you before, what do Satanists want to do? Invert everything. That involves inverting gender, because when you erase the boundary between man and woman, you destroy the foundation of identity, creation, family, and power. Masculine and feminine, those are energies. And with the Baphomet, he represents those energies merged into one, which spiritually or on an occult manner, we can say, that's you transcending duality, right? And what do the elite worship? Not religion, not humanity. They worship transcendence. The idea that they are gods who can rise above nature, morality, even gender. So when you get into Freemasonry, you get into Thelema by that guy we talked about. I can't believe I forgot his name already. But you guys know him. Oh my god. I can't believe I forgot. Come on, man. I forgot that guy already who started Thelema. He just. But these teachings, high level esoteric teachings, they all obsessed with duality, and the ultimate goal is to reconcile the opposites. And it is not just spiritual fluff, it becomes political, it becomes cultural engineering, because the Baphomet isn't hiding. Look around, man. You see it on runways, you see it on music award, you see Sam Smith dressing like a genderless devil. These are all symbols of Baphomet. These is programming, ritual disguised as pop culture, and why do you think the biggest push for androgyny is aimed at the youth? It's aimed at kids. Why do you think these kids are bombarded with shows that push this gender fluidity before they can even read? You see even in cartoons, animation. And if you question this stuff, you're called a bigot. That's not freedom, man. That is spiritual initiation, actually, So let's get deeper, man, into what I mentioned when I talked about the inversion. Can't believe I forgot that guy's name. I just talked about him on the last video. Aleister Crowley, yes, my God. I just talked about him, Aleister Crowley, who started Thelema, yes, and the sex magic and all that. But the reason Baphomet has both male and female traits is because of the androgyny. In occultism, it symbolizes the perfected being. Not man, not woman, but something beyond, something other. And what's being sold to you as liberation, be whoever you want to be. You can be male, you can be female, you can be transgender, it's actually identity collapse. Don't get me wrong, I don't have any problems with the LGBTQ whatsoever. I don't have any problems with those people. But I'm just telling the truth of what is happening, So this is not about accepting people. They continue to push this thing because it is about replacing nature. When someone loses the concept of masculine and feminine, they lose the spiritual energy that binds society. You have to realize that the masculine energy, it is order, it is logical. The feminine energy, it is to nurture. It is creative energy. And when you confuse the two, when you erase them, you get chaos. This is why Baphomet holds the torch. That it's enlightenment once you transcend duality, once you transcend feminine and masculine, you merge these two energies, you get enlightenment. I understand that enlightenment, but when it's done where physically they want you to be a transgender, no. That's a false light. That's a false enlightenment, because now this is leading into confusion while pretending it is the truth. Where now people are actually forced to love transgenders, if I can say that. That's also why the phrase "as above, so below," it is actually carved, into that figure, the Baphomet. I saw that symbol somewhere, but I'm going to put the images up. I'm going to get the images and put them up so you guys can clearly see what I'm talking about. When we talk about "as above, so below," that comes from hermet, hermeticism. So it actually means what happens in the spiritual realm mirrors what happens on earth. So if they can manipulate the spiritual polarity, they manipulate reality. As above, so below. What happens above, it also happens here on earth. So Baphomet is not just genderless. Baphomet is posthuman. The ultimate goal isn't just to confuse you, it is to replace you. That's the ultimate goal. This was never about inclusion. This was never about love. This was about ritual. Every time a child is confused about their gender, every time a man is shamed for being masculine, every time a woman is told to abandon femininity, a piece of Baphomet wins. The god of the elite is not hiding. He's not hiding. He's been televised, he's been celebrated. Because the more they make you question who you are, the easier it is for them to tell you what to become. You're male. You have a freaking penis. You're a female. You know that. So why are we being confused? Why are people forced? Come on, man. What's happening? But anyway, man, see you on the next one. This was about the Baphomet. Bye.